Movie Wars.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Movie Wars podcast.
Yeehaw!
We're back with Seth and our friend from the Northman, John Datoy, the great Nashville comedian. What's up, buddy?
Hello, everybody.
Tell us a little bit about yo-yo, because I see you do it. When I was in a lot of my school, I'm older, I think, than both of you. How old are you?
Almost 32.
Okay, I'm 37, so we're not that different. But yo-yo was such a craze. And I remember what they did in high school. If you didn't remember our last episode, he's a world champion. I saw people like do moves. I thought it was cool, but then I watched videos of you doing it. I literally have no idea how anyone can do the stuff you do with a yo-yo. How?
It's just like, well, when I was younger, like YouTube had finally like really became what YouTube was starting to become as it is now. And that's kind of how I learned. I would just watch these crazy tricks I like what we're doing.
Right.
And like that's just how quickly it was getting pushed because the internet was available. And I really do think getting me to do some of the stuff I put.
That's the problem is you're not Filipino enough.
I'm not Filipino
You're not
enough.
Asian enough, so you can't do it or like comprehend it.
Yeah, Filipinos one of the best creative scenes though for yo-yoing. So
Yeah, I'm just Filipino enough for the heart disease.
Yeah.
dude, yeah, get us some adobo and some hypertension.
Yeah, we have. If you don't know anything about Filipinos, we have heart attacks. That is something we do.
And we will ignore it until we're 30. So.
And then we'll rub mud on it. That's how you solve it.
And mud is vapor rub, if anyone wants to know what that is.
People think I'm making this up, but like, what is it called? Like the earthworm that's the size of a rattlesnake. Have you know?
Yeah.
We literally in the Philippines, like you'll see footage of people cracking open a log, and you think it's a snake, but it's an earthworm.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh.
And they'll be like, we should stuff some lumpia inside this
And cook it.
and eat it on our raft.
I'm so glad to have someone here that understands. I love it.
It's so many things that they can accept in the Philippines. So like yo-yoing's becoming bigger now in the Philippines because they're like, well, we were into boxing, but Manny made everyone mad.
He made an error.
He made an error off the ring. We like Arnell, but like no one likes old people, and that's who he hangs out with right now.
Yeah.
Just kidding, but he's still great. They played Lollapalooza. Is that crazy? They're like one of the headliners.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then, but now like yo-yos are coming back because like yo-yos are cheap still. It's still like plastic strings and things.
Yeah. And if you don't do well with it, you can hang yourself with it.
Wow.
So, wait, was that the wrong thing to say? Oh, I'm sorry.
Now we're going to introduce the Adventures of Tintin.
I just literally thought about that. It's such a useful tool.
right after suicide.
I think the correct thing was to say, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can juggle. I don't know.
You can buy more yo-yos.
Just like life.
You can Northman someone with some yo-yos.
That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of how the yo-yo began. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to keep that or not. We'll see. Little dark for the yo-yo scene. Today we are covering the Adventures of Tintin. Speaking of wanting to hang myself.
A heartfelt
What is
kids
wrong
movie.
with you?
That's
need
a
to know.
loaded question, man. That's a loaded. I don't like superhero movies. I'm not the right audience. I don't like. It wasn't until I had kids. I have 4 children. It wasn't until I started having kids that I even watched animated movies. I've never really liked them.
So you just don't like art, is
I
what
think
you're
that's a
saying.
Filipino
I
thing.
do like it. Is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched Jurassic Park instead of all the Disney movies.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I grew up on Predator, Terminator, RoboCop. Those were my childhood movies. Cobra, Commando.
So you got indoctrinated into thinking bad movies were good movies.
I saw.
And so whenever you watch good movies like the Snyder Cut, you can't enjoy them
Yeah,
because you're used to bad movies.
Yeah.
I think it's because there's conversation that can be had during the movie. You can miss 10 minutes and it's not going to be like, I'm so lost.
Oh, Arnold stabbed a guy in the throat. Okay, next question.
All right.
Yeah.
That cop got eviscerated by RoboCop. All right.
All right, sounds good. No, I did, and you actually make a valid point. I know you're joking, but I did see really violent movies way too young.
Yeah.
And like by the time I started watching and animated movies when I was younger weren't as good as they are today.
Yeah.
And like when I was finishing my point, I actually really have fallen in love with Toy Story.
Oh yeah.
Seeing it through my kids' eyes and them not seeing violent movies because I'm a good parent, unlike mine. I haven't let my kids watch that. Like I went back, I prayed to the Lord for a year. I was like, should I let them watch the Batman animated series? I was like, that was a
And then it took me and Drew Davis to convince him.
Yeah. Finally him and Drew Davis can be like, okay, I'll let them watch it. I'm still like watching.
Did they watch this one with you?
No, but I actually, the alcoholism in it's a little weird.
Yeah.
That's one of my big
Batman animated movie.
No, in Tintin. And the dog enables the alcoholism. I don't know if that's a good message.
It is very in line with the comics, though.
Yeah. Again, I don't give a shit about source material. This is an individual experience. But yeah, I struggle. I do struggle, and I have grown to appreciate it. And I do. I really do love Toy Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion capture, we can get into it more later, but you texted me when I started watching, like, what do you think about the mocap? And I was like, at the time, I was like 10 minutes in. I was like, this is really cool. About 15 minutes into the movie, it became a novelty, and it kind of wore off for me. And I was kind of like, well, do you just hate animated movies? I was like, well, you used to, but you really love Toy Story now. And so I am opening up to animation, but yeah, it's not something I grew up with. I grew up with extremely violent movies I shouldn't have seen, so I don't really have a great view of these things.
Sure.
So that's kind of where I come from.
But even then, it's still, you can look at these, especially this one, you can look at it as an adventure movie. Like, yeah sure, it's animated. Sure, there's cartoony elements to it, but that art form lends itself to being able to do things that you cannot do on regular film.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, as we've seen with superhero films that try to do the crazy shit, it just looks weird because you do have real things being intermixed with animated things. The fact that this is fully animated, but also has that like twinge of realism, but also has the cartooniness to it, I absolutely love it. Like it again, there's just shots throughout this whole movie that you could never do with a regular camera. That the only way you could achieve these types of artistic shots is because it's animated and because it was motion captured.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. I mean, like, honestly, like, I had forgotten that this movie was made 11.
Yeah.
And then, like, as someone who doesn't watch a lot of animated films, I'm like, holy crap, what is out there now? You're like, and so I get your point on, like, because I grew up on, like, when I was like 8. and I was like, I just remember being like, this is so cool. But yeah, like whenever I watched The Little Mermaid when I was like, for the first time when I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I was just
same
like,
actually.
Yeah. And then it's just like, you start to realize like, I get it now. Like it's crazy too that we'll talk about like some of the themes that you and I were probably surprised about in Tintin, a PG movie. But like, it reminded me of 90s Disney movies I did like. Yeah. You know, which involved real people and real themes. Like I forgot that the Mighty Ducks started with a guy.
Yeah.
Like it's
See, I've never actually seen the Mighty Ducks.
Or the Mighty DUI.
Or like the heavyweights movie is literally the whole message is like, hey guys, what if fat kids were people too?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you're just like, that's funny as an adult to me.
Yeah.
And it was funny to me as a kid. You know, it's just like, I don't know.
Well, I was first introduced to Tintin when I was a kid. My older sibling would get this kind of young adult magazine that would come in, and in this magazine, every issue had a section of one of the Tintin graphic novels. So I weirdly, inadvertently grew up reading a lot of the Tintin stories, and I gotta say, as far as pre-1970s graphic novels are concerned, this is one of the best ones. The tone of the movie genuinely comes from the actual source material. Like, it is shocking how close this movie feels to its original source material. Yeah. So I think that may be one reason why some of the themes like alcoholism and the use of guns and everything could make someone who doesn't understand the source material a little uncomfortable. But you have to remember, it was written originally by a French artist, and the French are just alcoholics in general. So it's like the amount he was drinking was actually just kind of a Tuesday.
Yeah, it was also 1923. So it was when it started.
Well, yeah, it started in the 20s, really got popular, I think, like during and post World War II, and then kind of like really hit its peak in the 50s and 60s before it kind of tapered off into the 70s, and then you didn't really get, I mean, I think, I think Air J has died I don't quote me on
Is
that.
that how you say it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Hergy.
No, it's a French name, so it's Hergé. But yeah, like it's crazy to me how actually close this hit the source material.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a little research on that, honestly, because I had some questions about it.
Also, what a weird little like sidestep for Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, very weird.
Yeah.
That's honestly the big shock of it all for me. So yeah, besides the 2011 part. So,
Yeah. I also love that it's a very much a labor of love and a partnership of love between him and Peter Jackson. You might have this in your randos, I don't know, but the deal that was made when initially they thought they were going to be able to make several of these in somewhat quick succession, the deal was Spielberg and Peter Jackson would switch off between who directed and who produced.
Yeah.
So Spielberg directed this one, Peter Jackson. We might, again, I don't know what materials you have on the research, but supposedly there's another one coming out, according to Andy Serkis last year. They're still working on the sequel, but it has been in production limbo for years and years and years. But that is still technically the plan is Peter Jackson and Spielberg are supposed to go back and forth on who's directing these.
Yeah, it was going to be, originally they agreed to a trilogy. Spielberg was going to do one, Jackson was going to do two, and it was a toss-up for three. They were going to decide that when they got there.
Yeah.
The ultimate factor was that even though this did really well total, 300 million globally, it only made 70 of that in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so the studio felt that even though it did well globally, it didn't translate in the U.S., so they didn't want to do another one.
Yeah, domestic really guides a lot. So,
which is so sad because it is unless you're an asshole, it is a wonderful gem of a film.
Wow. Because I have a different, well, I was just, I wish you would have told me that this wasn't a solo origin movie for my favorite villain from The Crow. This was not that Tintin, the wrong Tintin. Love you, Tintin.
wrong Tintin.
The wrong Tintin. Also, what kind of fucking name is Tintin?
French.
Okay.
Technically, it is pronounced Tintin.
Oh, well, it doesn't fix his hair.
His hair is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a cowlick in the front. It's the worst
It was
kind.
really a play on phonetics, I think.
Yeah. It should have been about the Crow villain.
You just hate the French.
Should have been about the.
They were not nice to me, and they haven't been nice to our people in general.
Honestly,
They're not nice to anyone.
Yeah.
I'm glad you lost all that land in the Louisiana Purchase.
Yes, that's right. You haven't been nice to our people.
It's the only thing
idiots.
Napoleon did right.
Yeah,
Of course, you could say that about dozens of civilizations that haven't been nice to the Philippines.
It's
true.
most of the world, let's be real.
Yeah.
We're like the Poland of Asia.
Yeah, we really are. We really are. I mean, and then Apocalypse Now, like even Coppola's like they let him use, the Philippines let him use the helicopters to make that movie. He's like, listen, I'm going to start making a movie in your country, whether you like it or not. Now give me your helicopters. We were like, woo! It's just like 1450 all over again.
Yeah. That's okay. We were just trying to make an Air Force.
Okay. Well, as long as our helicopters are in your movie.
Yeah.
He did make The Godfather.
All right, but let's get into why didn't you like this?
Okay, well, I want to round this intro part out. Like, I also really, and I texted you about this a little bit, I struggle with Steven Spielberg more than any other director.
Yeah.
Really?
I really do. He's a guy that I think early in his career was so tenacious. I mean, when you really do a lot of research on Jaws, the tenacity he had to show to make that movie, I mean, absolutely insanity. I mean, I can't even go through all the detail. We have an old Jaws episode from back in the day that you can go listen to where we go through the history, but all the Indiana Jones movies minus the newest one. Like, really?
Well, he didn't direct the newest one.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Sorry, I totally forgot. I don't even give a shit about the newest one.
The
but
newest one was great.
It's too new for me. If it came out after 2010, I'm just kidding. No. But he's a guy that I think, minus those movies and Saving Private Ryan, he gets right up to the line and doesn't cross it. And Minority Report is the biggest crime to me. It's the future crime. I am a giant Philip K. Dick fan. I read just endless amounts of
You
Philip
like a lot of Dick?
I love it. Just give it to me. Just give it to me in 500 pages or less.
Sorry, that was low-hanging
500
fruit.
pages.
That was long,
Low-hanging
fruit. But Philip K. Dick, the Minority Report short story is such a visceral, just in Philip K. Dick had this amazing ability to see the future. I mean, he did it with Total Recall, which was based on We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, and the foundation for Blade Runner, which was Do Cyborgs Electric Sheep Dream of Cyborgs? I can't remember the full name.
Yeah.
But he was very he writes very dark technological future looking things. He was writing these things in the 50s and the 60s. But then Spielberg gets a hold of Minority Report and turns it into this popcorny, and I get it, right? You gotta adapt things for the screen, but he removed and neutered the testicles from that thing, man. That was
what year did it come out?
The movie?
Yeah.
Was it 2004,
I think?
Something like that.
Was it that late? I thought it was a 90s
It might,
movie.
yeah. I'll have to look it up, but
we'll look it up.
Interesting.
But I just feel like Spielberg can get right up to the line and just not cross it enough. And I feel like he does kind of overcompensate and make things a little popcorny for me. And this was such an uneven story to me. Like I said, like you're seeing this brilliant mocap, and no matter how I feel about the film, there's no detesting or contesting how great the motion capture is. It looks stunning most of the time. I do have some problems with some parts of it, but overall it's a very innovative film from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But like it's this weird. And maybe because it is European and it has that flair to it in terms of the storytelling. But then, like, you got the alcoholism and the dog, and Tintin kills people with a gun or tries to kill people with a gun. I can't remember if he actually kills it, but then
no, he doesn't.
Could have sworn he did.
Yeah, he's a kid with a gun.
He's not a kid. No, he's not a kid.
But I don't know.
He's a full-fledged adult.
That's not what I've understood, though. Like,
he has a job. He's a journalist.
I know, but but according to my research, he's still a kid.
That's not what I researched.
I've listened to podcasts and read, but there's some people that say, yes, he's still a kid.
I don't think that was ever the case. I could see how some people would mistake that, but I don't think RJ considered him to be a child.
We got to take into account the age of consent. Is he an adult or is he
yeah, it's true.
Man? So,
yes.
Oh, my God.
I think in France it's like 15.
Can he fuck?
Let me see.
Because my understanding was not that he was young. He was in his 20s, but I don't think he's supposed to be a child.
He seems like a college student. That's the way that it was presented to me.
Yeah.
And after I did my research, but that is still pretty young.
It says Tintin is not an adult. However, he does live alone with a kid and with a dog and has a job. This is Wired.com talking about it. Yeah. So again, there's confusion. Like my favorite podcast is now playing, and I listen to them to do research and stuff. And those guys are Hollywood guys, and they said he's a kid. I don't know.
Interesting.
That's what's weird though.
That was never my understanding.
And I'm not critiquing your point of view.
Yeah.
It's not clearly presented. So again, it's an uneven story, and it's a weird thing for a guy that toes the line to me and doesn't cross it enough for me to enter, like, I would call it Scorsese Coppola land, where those guys are really good at kind of crossing the line in storytelling. But it's weird. He doesn't really cross the line, but then we got alcoholic, then kid shooting people with a gun, but we don't know if he's a kid.
But again, that's all source material. Like it is very faithful to what it is an adaptation of.
I know, but you have to, dude. American audiences did not read Tintin, and that's why it failed here. Yeah, that's
but
factual.
But again, when you're dealing with an adaptation, you have to be faithful to the adaptation.
Well, you don't have to. Kubrick wasn't.
I mean, yeah, but Kubrick's also kind of an asshole.
Yeah, and that's why The Shining is 6,000 times better than the book. This again, and I told you this with the Snyder thing. Not everyone's going to come to it. Like these films have to stand alone. Like they cannot just be. Yeah, that's just my opinion, but I mean,
sure, but again, you have source material. If you're going to adapt something, and people can, I think the argument could be made: The Shining is a terrible adaptation. Great movie, terrible adaptation. If you're going to adapt something, I do think at the very least you have to keep the spirit of the source material, or else why the fuck are you adapting it?
Yeah.
And so, sure, maybe you didn't connect with the source material, but those questions you have, it's like, no, this is actually very faithful to the 50, 60 year span of that comic series.
I think it definitely was a risk making this movie, but I think it paid out in ways that, like, for other filmmakers made us realize what was out there.
Oh yeah.
And
because it avoided the uncanny valley that both the Polar Express and Mars Needs Moms had as far as motion capture goes.
And I also think that too, like I'm not really big in the know of inter-director relationships, but like I've always seen that like Spielberg and Cameron were always kind of like the opposites of each other, because like Cameron like I think that the reason that maybe Spielberg would always take it up to that line but not cross it is because Cameron would, like, in the production at least of it, would cross that line. Like,
oh yeah,
he'll actually go 40,000 feet into the ocean. And be like, I'm James Cameron. I'm gonna do this. He's not British. I don't know why I did that. But
Hello, I'm James Cameron.
I'd never thought about it that way, but I do think you're right. Like in a lot of ways, Spielberg and Cameron, while their films kind of feel similar, hit like the polar opposite sides of that kind of feel good way of making movies.
So, and maybe that's just what Spielberg wanted to do. So
yeah. Well, and to me, again, I agree to disagree. Like, you have to make a movie standalone. The thing is that it's not shocking to me, and I'm a big reader. You know this about me. I read every day, and I read especially for this podcast.
Well, you're a big listener.
Well, now because I have kids, but I used to physically read books, and then I realized if I didn't listen, I wouldn't be able to get through books because I do dishes. I'm raising 4 children. But
makes them read.
Yeah.
Put the dick down.
Exactly. I am medically unavailable at this point. Thank you to Tennessee Urological Center. I did get an infection that they had to clear up. That was a problem.
God.
So, yeah, it was just pus. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah, that's like antibiotics or whatever.
Yeah, it was surface level. It wasn't in the Vans deference.
This we're getting anatomical now.
Yes.
That's rough.
Anyways, I fully believe that if you want to sell a film and make a film that's based on source material, you cannot, in this case, expect... With Kubrick, there was a much higher chance because people read more. Stephen King had, with The Shining, had become one of the most popular authors in the world with that book. Before then, he wasn't, but that is what made him popular. It was less of a risk to adapt The Shining than it is for American audiences, and $70 million out of $300 million domestic versus global says a lot of Americans don't give a shit about Tintin. And I'm just being factual about that. So did it not hit me? Yeah, but I mean, they made a movie about a French comic that I never really cared about or heard of. And so I'm like, I expect, and same with Snyder. Like, I know more about Batman. I didn't know about anything else. And I went in thinking, this has got to be a good movie without the source material. Because I like a lot of people and just not. And they made a hodgepodge of it anyway. Zack Snyder was picking from here. I picked from there. He combined like 5 stories for one movie. So it's kind of like
one great movie.
Yeah. Still with the Snyder fans, we have a video that's still going viral, and Snyder fans are still calling me fat. Fuck you. Anyway, you're throwing me off my game. I'm just kidding. You got me emotional now.
Yeah.
Fuck the French. Okay, I'm gonna cut that out. So, anyway,
my God.
What I will say is, I see why you like it.
Yeah.
You are appreciative. I've gotten to know you through this podcast. You appreciate innovation. And I think innovation's a big deal for you. And I think if I was putting myself in your shoes, especially because you're a filmmaker, you're watching this saying the technical marvel of this. There's a lot to be had. And I respect.
Oh, definitely there. But I also think it tells an incredibly clean story. I think it's insanely fun, especially because it did end up being PG, because I do think it could have easily gone over to PG-13, especially looking at the source material. It gets dark in those comics at times. Like, this even a little bit whitewashes how dark the comics got quite often. And so, but no, I think the story is an absolute fun story. There are times it feels like King Kong. At times it feels like Indiana Jones. Like it feels very much like a solid adventure story. And I think it set itself up to, if they had just continued making them like they originally wanted to, I think it could have built into something great.
I think the score also had a lot to do with like, because like that's what they got nominated for like
the fact that they didn't get nominated for VFX is absolutely insane.
Well, I mean, we'll probably dig into that, but like you made a good point off the bat here, because it was like, where's the benchmark of which it, but I don't know. Like, I was in the middle on this movie overall, but like and we'll talk about that too. I thought it was weird that we had assassination. It's like one of the first things, which in the comics, he actually doesn't die, but like the whole time I picture like a mom bringing like their 6-year-old and then like seeing
my
another
mom
kid
did bring her 6-year-old and we loved it.
That's awesome. And then and then you watch this kid who looks 14, 13. He's holding a bloody newspaper. Like, my friend was holding this,
Yeah. Yeah. It's very weird.
It's, I don't know.
It's very uneven. Yeah. It's an uneven story.
I think it was purposely loose too. So I will give him that. Like,
how do you define uneven?
It's uneven in the way that the story isn't coherent. to me.
How is it not good? What did you not understand?
Because the characters in terms of how they act and the motives and the way they do, like Tintin's whole thing, like I just think the story they're telling doesn't jive with some of the elements, like the alcoholism, the kid shooting people. Like I just think it's out of place for the story they're telling.
Interesting, because I could not disagree more.
Yeah, but you like the source material.
Even then, I'm looking at the time period it takes place in. I am looking at the time period that it was created in.
Yeah,
like it's not even because I'm not even that deep on the source material. I had a surface level enjoyment of it as a kid.
Sure.
Yeah. And then when the movie came out, I thought the movie in a lot of ways improved on the source material. But I at least had enough understanding that, I guess some of the more jarring elements of the source material didn't stick out to me that much.
Yeah.
But again, I was also used to the fact that the comic went even darker than this movie did a lot of times.
Yeah.
There were several times that like you're supposed to think Tintin died in like this incredibly gruesome way, like falling out of a window of a castle onto the rocky shore below. Like, it got real dark at times.
Well, the themes of one of the major stories was African colonialism. I mean, that's one of the main storylines in the comics.
Yeah. Which again, it was kind of in the middle of that era where like Lawrence of Arabia was coming out, and like that theme was very prevalent in art at the time because parts of Africa were trying to gain their independence from the British.
Yeah. These are all good points.
These are all points. Here's the final point. If you want to see a great movie about children killing adults, watch Children of the Corn.
Ambiguous young adults.
Ambiguous, maybe adult, maybe just a short adult, whatever that is. Watch Children of the Corn. Watch Halloween 1. You'll see plenty of great children murdering.
and the Sinister series with Ethan Hawke.
But if you want to see good movie, watch The Adventures of Tintin.
A lot of great kids killing adult movies out there.
I'm not going to lie to you. When I saw the trailer for this movie, 13 years ago, I thought literally like, oh, it's going to be like Polar Express. And then I saw it and I was like, this is not Polar Express.
Yeah. Maybe you sit at your desk all day thinking there's maybe a treasure out there. Maybe there's purpose. Maybe I'll just hop on a ship and I will redefine and reshape my life by going on a ship to the middle of the ocean. There isn't. You literally have one thing to listen to numb yourself at your day job, and that is this podcast.
It's true.
Your boss may be thinking you're listening to a spreadsheet podcast because you're an accountant, or maybe you're a metallurgist, and your boss thinks you're listening to a metal podcast. You're listening to Movie Wars.
This is the weirdest promo you've ever done.
Well, this is a weird movie. It's so weird to me.
Yeah. Speaking of metallurgy, we're sponsored by 3D printers.
Yeah. There's a great aluminum company just down the street. If you like Folgers coffee cans, I think they make those. Yeah. Those are plastic now.
They are.
But there is no greater purpose. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. You are where you are. You're going to be stuck there forever. Listen to Movie Wars in the meantime. We have lots of episodes. It's all evergreen content, baby. Thank you for listening to Movie Wars. Send it to your friends, to your metallurgist, to your, what is the Witcher? What is the alchemist? Send it to your alchemist friends too. Love you. That was my worst one.
That was terrible.
That was my worst one.
That was a good plug.
I woke up today to say, you want to say the word metallurgist at some point today.
Then he said it 8 times in a row.
It's a power word, man.
It is power word. I don't drink anymore, so that's what I do at parties now. When some annoying drunk person walks up to me and talk about where they went to school. Oh, did you go to Harvard? I went to Harvard. What private school do your kids to go to? I go, metallurgist. And then I walk away.
Super alloy.
Super alchemy.
Then that drunk guy walks over to his friends like, I just met a wizard, y'all.
Yeah. Oh, but when we went to Harvard, the questions.
The question.
Okay. Does Snowy enable Haddock's alcoholism here? Is the dog finding this guy booze?
Only when he knows it's the key to solving the mystery.
But he is enabling his alcoholism.
Only when he's trying to solve the mystery.
Go ahead.
I didn't like that the dog should have gotten drunk, and he didn't get drunk.
Yeah.
Because because that's like 2/5 of whatever whiskey.
Sorry. Yeah.
That was medical grade alcohol.
Yeah. It was just, it was like
that was
just
straight alcohol.
Spirits.
Yeah.
And you're like, that dog's going to die. And they're at elevation too. That I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, maybe it's because I just quit drinking. I'm very sensitive to this right now. But my wife was watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm like, man, there's a lot of alcohol in this show. Are you sure you want to watch this? Is this good for you?
Yeah.
But hey, Haddock does become sober.
He does.
He grows as a character.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Becomes friends with a French boy.
Yeah.
Maybe we should come up with a word for the ambiguity around that. A boy-dolt or an ad-boy.
Boy
An ad boy.
An ad-boy. An ad-boy. Some weird, like, middle evolution, you know?
He's a young adult.
Yes.
Remember, you were an adult at 10 back in those days, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And you got married off at 12.
That's true.
And then you died at 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of miss those days.
Watch the Northman one.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of miss the days where you just caught a stray, like, cold and died at 22.
Yeah.
It was,
A stray.
Way
cold.
simpler.
yeah. Like, imagine the sniffles being a sign, like, you're done. Your life is over. Yeah.
You get the sniffles, you just go out for your
Yeah.
last rites into the woods.
You somehow survived tuberculosis, but a common cold.
Yeah. Arthur Morgan style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Rando.
Oh, that was the only question you had?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't think of any more. Could you think of any more? How about that mocap?
I mean, yeah, the mocap. See,
It was good.
that was a crazy thing is you'd really only seen it in video games at the time. You didn't really, and obviously we had Polar Express and Mars Needs Moms, and they were the little baby steps in motion capture. But before that, the only way it had been used in movies was for Jar Jar Binks and for Gollum.
Okay.
And then King Kong. Those were really the only ones using motion capture, but no one had really done like a full out movie that didn't weird people out with how like uncanny valley it was. And this, I think the art style lended itself to that because you could get hyper realistic on certain things, but then you have like certain people's noses are just a little like off compared to what a real person's nose would look like. Certain things were exaggerated. Like they did a really good job at finding that balance between realism and cartoonism to make the style of animation work.
Yeah, it's a sword fight for me between St. Francis.
Oh, so good.
I was like, all right, I see technology.
And if you watch the behind the scenes, it's so much fun to watch the entire cast like run around these mocap rooms that they have set up, because they would set up like blocks for set pieces that they were supposed to be walking up and down on, even though they're just gonna animate it later. Like they're actually getting elevation within the space. Like they really did push a lot of the technical bounds of what you could do with this style of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Also, I think I mentioned it earlier, but Peter Jackson, while he was the producer on this, also was the second unit director. And in fact, while he was doing pre-production on The Hobbit, he was also teledirecting certain parts of the movie. If I remember correctly, which it's kind of hilarious because in 2005 it did King Kong. If I remember correctly, he did all of the boat scenes and Steven Spielberg did everything else, but especially the desert scenes, which makes sense because you get so hard King Kong vibes from the boat sequences, and then you get so hard Indiana Jones vibes from the desert sequences. Like it's just, you could really tell who had their fingers in what part of the movie.
I even though I'm back and forth on Spielberg, I will give him credit. He is a great collaborator, and he's willing to collaborate.
Oh yeah,
he collaborates a lot.
His creative bound is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I will say this. The one thing that I know that's in the comics, like the silk pickpocketer guy, but that was just like, it seemed to me so, and I know that they needed to find Tintin's wallet to like get Thompson and Thompson to figure out where he was. I forgot the country, but anyways, like I just thought that was kind of anticlimactic too, that he's just like, and I know in the comics he's like, it was me, and like, Silk's getting like angry that like these two idiots can't figure it out.
Yeah.
But it was just oddly placed in my opinion in terms of the timing of the movie. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, I that's the one, I'm going to add on the question. I'm like, I wonder what the process was.
I mean, it had to go before they ended up in the Middle East.
Yep, that's, yeah.
So like, I don't know. Like it's interesting you're saying these things, both of you, because like none of this, I didn't have any questions about any of this. And even the ones that I read, the pickpocketer wasn't even a part of it. Like I didn't realize that was even a canonical character until you just said it now.
Yeah, it was. Well, I did a lot of research. I actually had to do a lot of research to make sure I got the characters correctly associated in my mind so that we could talk in a productive manner.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm like, attempted murder.
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know why I just got lost in my own thought there. Second rando here.
Did we even do the first rando?
Yeah. Oh well. You actually said the first rando we talked about earlier with the trilogy. It was supposed to be a trilogy. So
there we go.
Damn it. I'm off my game. You're just too good.
I know. I'm great. I do know that with the trilogy, Thompson and Thompson were going to become bigger characters, like almost like equally main characters to Tintin as they were throughout the comic series.
Only characters I loved in this. Interesting. I love them.
You didn't love Andy Serkis as Haddock? Oh my goodness.
Hated it.
Snowy's still my favorite.
Snowy and Thompson. I love those three. Those were my
Snowy was dope, yeah.
Snowy's awesome, even though he's an enabler, but you can't blame him. He's a dog. And
and hey, it helped. It got them to where they needed to go.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of moral gray area there.
Those are the most fun movies.
Yeah, if your friend's a heroin addict, but you know, like that person being on heroin's gonna like solve the riddle, you'd be like, hey,
if your friend became Sherlock Holmes on heroin, until you don't need Sherlock Holmes anymore, if it's gonna save the world,
well, that's kind of how they wrote the TV adaptation with Lucy Liu and whatever Solve Crimes.
Yeah.
It was a weird twist, and it went for too long on TV. So that's only because Lucy Liu was hot. So.
Yeah.
Randos. So this had a start. Not only was the cast and the production and the directing, all that was star-studded, they had more directors actually interested in this film. Spielberg originally had this property in '84, but he had a hard time getting it made, so he lost the rights. Had to get them back in 2001 is when he actually got it back and decided he was going to fully adapt it. And when he started kicking around the idea of doing mocap, they actually tested it out. They had Robert Zemeckis. And they had James Cameron on set as well, and they came and they went and showed up for the testing to see, because he was originally wanting to do just standard animations.
Yeah.
But they went and did it, and they all gave feedback, and that's how they decided that was how they wanted to go forward.
I mean, it makes sense, because if you're gonna do these characters correctly and avoid what happened with the Super Mario Brothers movie, like it makes sense to kind of hit an animation style that's not fully animated. They move like real people, but you also, like, if you tried to give a real person Tintin's haircut or Thompson and Thompson's look, it just would have looked weird.
Yeah,
like it wouldn't have looked good. You're good.
I was thinking about the Thompson and Thompson guys.
Yeah.
Because I was like, they are likable. So
they are very likable.
I mean, it's Simon Pegg and what's the other guy's name?
Frost.
Yeah, Nick Frost.
Nick Frost.
They're so good.
Really, it's the best comedy. To me, and the wallet room thing was the one scene I was like, I like this scene.
It's so good.
That's the best scene in the whole movie.
Very particular.
Yeah,
I do also like that super long one-shotter, like the oneer where they're trying to get the papers from the bird.
Yeah,
and it just like keeps going down to even to the point that the freaking the tank with the house on it just comes through, and then the guy comes out and adds stars because it's a waterfront property now.
That's one of the
humor
best scenes.
Is so good.
Yeah. It definitely was designed for adults and kids, for sure. And I think it accomplishes it well on that. But as like, you know, an adult of kids, it's probably like maybe when you're 10.
But I mean, even Toy Story has absolutely filthy jokes that are just
that's true.
Completely buried under kid-friendly words.
I mean, Toy Story 3 has that scene where they're like just accepting fate. That was really
like,
you're like, oh dang.
Or even the scene where Woody is just like, the word I'm thinking of I can't say because there's preschool toys around.
Yeah.
Like or in Toy Story 2 when Jesse saves the critter by jumping on the Hot Wheels track and Buzz's wings just pop out. Like it's a total sex joke. Like we've always had, and I mean even go back further in Disney animation, like you literally have
Easter
the word
eggs have
sex
always been there.
in the sky of Lion King.
Yeah.
Like these types of weird humor have always been put into animated.
Yeah, and almost every old Disney movie, like pre 90s, what the whole preface of the story was that it comes from disobeying your parents.
Yeah.
Like that's literally the storyline of every.
Yeah. And there's literally you talk about hidden Mickeys with fucking Disney. You have hidden penises almost everywhere in those movies. Like it's weird, and I think one reason I do like this so much is because it's honest with its adult moments.
Yeah.
But it's still not like grotesque or vulgar with them.
Yeah. Harrison's totally into what you're saying, by
Absolutely. He loved this movie. He sat here the whole time and stared right at the screen. Yeah.
Probably because it's snowy.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying? I interrupted.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with Steph on that honestly, it was very straightforward, which I can appreciate.
Yeah.
Because, I remember, when people were posting all those, memes and like kind of like all the Easter eggs of the previous Disney movies. I don't think there were a lot of Easter eggs in this one.
No.
And like I think that also was very interesting about like the ending of this movie is that like honestly it leaves it up to you to be like, so what did you think? It almost is literally saying like, what do you guys think about this? Like, you know, it's not the typical kids movie that wraps up like, all right, well, hopefully we'll see you again. You know? So,
and it's like, obviously they set it up for a sequel, but I do think overall the story itself very much stands on its own.
Right.
Like as much as I would love a sequel, it doesn't necessarily need a sequel to it to make it a good movie. It's still a very solid beginning, middle, and end to this story they told.
Do you think they're if they make a second one, they would be able to retain most of the previous ones?
Oh, yeah. Jamie Bell has said, even though he's in his 40s, he's like, I absolutely still would play this character. Okay. He even mentioned, he was like, I think if it wasn't motion capture, it would be weird for me to come back as this character. But because it's all motion capture and you don't see my face, it's not weird for me to come back as a 40-whatever-year-old to play this character.
Yeah, I think they definitely could dig into it, I imagine.
Yeah.
They would start production officially, but...
Yeah. Jamie Bell. I don't even smoke weed. A lot of people think I do, but they're wrong.
You just have the look.
I just have a problem.
Yeah.
The market artist at the beginning bears the likeness of Hergé. Is that how you say his name? Hergé.
Yeah.
That is, he's supposed to be Hergé. He's supposed to look like him. So I don't know Hergé, and I didn't know, but I read that.
I didn't know either. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I do love that moment where he turns the picture around and it's just the straight comic version of his face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he painted. That was another part of that. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool little callback.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, this is the first non-Pixar movie to win a Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Picture since the category was first introduced.
That's cool.
It beat out Cars 2.
As it should have.
Which, yeah, as the father of kids that love the Cars movies, the Cars 2 one is the worst Cars movie.
Oh, by 100.
That's the
only good scene was the wasabi scene.
That's a good scene.
Yeah.
That's it's literally my favorite scene. See, I do like some animation in my older age, but you know, it just takes a certain thing.
Yeah.
It's exposure therapy.
Yeah. Shall we enable alcoholism?
Yes.
Shall we shoot adults and
Always.
be ambiguously maybe an ad boy?
It's better than shooting kids.
boy adults.
Yeah, there needs to be more dead adults.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Stop killing the kids.
Arm the young.
We need to bring back child soldiers.
Yes. Remember Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine had that guitar that said "Arm the Homeless"?
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
That's
Let's War. And the categories are for yes, affirmative, we love it, we dig it, unicorn. And I'm surprised that Seth wanted this. This was his idea.
No, you're not supposed to say that.
Oh, well, he actually likes it. He pretends like he doesn't. Rackham barely know her.
No, barely know him.
Barely know him.
God. Just ruining everything.
It's hard. It's collaborating is a thing. But Rackham barely know him.
He's no Spielberg, y'all. He doesn't know how to collaborate.
Yeah, I don't know how to neuter Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, don't know how to neuter the dick.
Yes. Top bill cast. And let me go over to my list here. The top 3 highest paid folks in this movie: Jamie Bell, Andy Serkis, Daniel Craig.
Which, if you had not told me it was Daniel Craig as the villain, I would never have guessed. Like he melds into this character so well, and it's like obviously it's not him on the screen, but it's like even voice wise, I would not have known it was him. I think every single one of them, especially when you consider the source material, unlike some uneducated people, I think they brought not only their own voice to the character, but I think they brought the vibe of the character itself from the source material really well to the movie. So it is definitely a unicorn for me.
Yeah, I'll say unicorn just because based on the experience. They definitely could have gone a different route, and I could probably nominations, but like I do give them a lot of credit because like with a new project, I feel like even with experienced actors, it can present kind of like.
I go Rackham barely know him.
Because you just hate everything.
No, I will. Give me a chance. When have I ever just been completely negative besides Justice League?
Batman v Superman.
I wasn't completely negative though.
Yeah, you were.
I gave it some kudos.
I don't think you did. Other than you, all you said was Batman was the one good part of that movie. You said everything else was shit.
That's positive. I said a positive thing. I wasn't completely negative. Come on. Here's what I'll say, and I have a much different opinion of the supporting cast. I do. Will I give it a unicorn? We'll have to see. Here's the thing. I'm watching it. And I don't feel hooked by nothing is connecting with me from these main characters, like these top bill. Like there's not competent, yes, like serviceable, yes, but for me a big part of it is, especially with animation, it's so difficult. And again, I have been hooked by the voice acting performances that I've seen in animation before, but here I'm not. I don't know if it's because it's maybe feeling stale to me, but there's nothing giving me life from these performances, so that's why. Yeah, I didn't feel hooked, and there wasn't a performance pulling me in saying I'm cheering for any of these three characters. So
interesting.
Yeah, Snowy on the other hand, I'm like go Snowy. I love the dog. I'm totally cheering anytime there's a dog. I'm going, but it doesn't matter. You guys you win the category, so unicorn. It is 1-0, and the ship is going up. Not down.
Yeah.
Supporting cast, and we will go to the list.
What a stacked cast.
It was
very stacked.
I will say that. Simon Pegg is Thompson. Nick Frost is Thompson. Daniel Mays is Alan. Gad, and you should probably let me know the ones that need to be called out because there's a ton of people here. Gad Elamaya as Ben Salad, and Toby Jones as Silk. The narrator, N. Radel. Any other big ones?
I feel like there was a bunch.
There's just so many names here.
But like some very famous names all throughout this.
Sanjay Fortag is Mr. Finch. That was a big one.
Toby Jones, definitely. Mackenzie Cook, I have seen in a lot of things. Carrie Elwes was the pilot.
Yep.
You just have a ton of these people just all throughout it. So yeah, I'd say that's probably wraps it all up there. Unicorn for me. Every single person, especially Thompson and Thompson, out of that list, every single person just, again, encapsulated the characters from the comics, but also brought their own little twist to it that I think really added to the source material. So it's a unicorn for me.
Okay. John.
Yeah, I'm gonna get unicorn. I felt that I think that like what this movie lacked was even though Barnaby was like a very minority, it really brought better one-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though in the comics he's not a pivotal character, I don't think, but like he's very important to starting off. Yeah, it's a unicorn. I'll give the cast it's solid. It's a solid cast.
Yeah,
you know? I get what you're saying with like you're not connecting with the main characters, that you're not rooting for them, but like I didn't completely lose interest because of the supporting cast and how it did marriage with the main cast, because there were holes, but the holes
filled. Oh.
Yeah. With the dick.
with the Philip A. Dick.
With Philip A. Dick.
Yeah.
Phil a Dick.
Oh, my God. I went unicorn here, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're going
to accuse you succumbing to peer pressure.
No, this isn't peer pressure. I pre-populate every category with my thoughts. Yeah, this is predetermined, like the Lord.
Frantically types.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I actually texted my wife. I said, guess what I'm wearing?
Philip A. Dick.
A t-shirt and nothing else. Supporting cast. Here's the thing. Yeah, I'm not connecting with the protagonists and the main characters here, but every time Thompson and Thompson are on screen, I'm laughing. I'm loving it. I actually think for it being, even though it's mocap animation, I really think the comedy from those two characters specifically like exceeds everything else in the movie.
Yeah.
It's really hard to deliver comedy. It's hard enough as a stand-up comedian to do comedy, but from an animated character, I feel like the banter between those two is a high level.
Yeah.
And
it's a matured Stooges thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's who's on first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
the waltz scene was exactly that. So.
Wallet scene is the best scene in the movie to me. I'm actually in a movie where I'm not feeling a lot of things. I'm laughing hysterically at that moment.
And
I'm not feeling a lot of things.
Yeah, that scene. So I give them that, and I think they definitely warrant a unicorn. So
cool.
Say I'm negative. 2-0. We are getting drunk and the dog is getting us drunk. Writing, and let's go to that. This really surprised me too. We've got Edgar Wright,
Yep.
Stephen Moffat, and Joe Cornish.
Is it Moffat or Moffat?
Moffat. What am I doing with my life? Moffat. And then obviously RJ gets credit as the creator.
I am gonna go unicorn, but this for me is gonna be a little more than a squeak over.
And your squeak overs.
It's like a 6 or 7. It is a PG movie, so there are going to be limitations, but I do think overall it tells an adventure story very well. It has a very strong start, middle, and end. You do see some, other than Tintin, who really is not supposed to develop as a character. Tintin is kind of the one stable thing throughout all of the stories where he is an observer. He's an outsider looking in on the situation because he is a reporter. His job is to observe and report. But when you look at especially Haddock's character, I think Haddock develops incredibly well over the series or over the movie. And I do think that Daniel Craig's character, the descendant of Rackham, is a very formidable villain. Like, I think he brings that creepy aspect while being just over the top enough that it fits the cartoony elements, but it's not so over the top that it takes you out of it. So it's a unicorn for me.
It's gonna be Rackham, barely know him, and the reason why is because I did do research on the comics here, and I just felt like there were holes that weren't skipped over because of the age restrictions on PG. I just thought it was like interesting that they had to cover it up to keep him safe, essentially. And then like I also like, I don't know, I would love to see the original script versus what was the final thing, because like when Haddock is explaining like he says like, I forgot it all, you know, and I was like, I'm not a very good reader, but like I just was like, I had a question around like, what did he forget? The story or the experiences? But like, it's just like, I would like to see if there was dialogue in between that and how that was structured. So I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but based upon the final product, it was just, I felt there were like holes where I'm like, oh, I needed that for me personally. But with the development of the characters, I do agree with Seth that like Tintin is the control of the whole entire, like he's the constant thing, you know. He's not the enzyme. He's not he's not going to speed things up. He's the constant of commitment to developing people's personalities. But I also think that too, that like, I don't know. The family lineage thing was very hard for me to decipher on the movie.
In what way?
That I just was like, okay, so there's, because it seemed like it was, I followed it, like there was 3 sons, you know, and then they all spent like time trying to find the coordinates, and Haddock was the last breathing one. But like we didn't find out about the third one until like the third model ship until like later on. I just felt like it was taking, every movie does this where they take a step back, go forward, like in a good way. But I just was having a hard time making sure that all the previous points of the ups and downs were connecting in my brain the way that the movie too. So yeah, it was it was kind of a rack and barely known. But again, it's by literally like it's like that much.
So he's a squeak under.
Yeah.
You and your squeaks. You got to be all in. Okay. Sometimes I look at the camera and when nothing comes back, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not a person. It's an inanimate object.
Like this is 60 minutes.
What do you think, Kamala?
Joe, JB, look that up.
I also go rack and barely know him. Very similar to what you said. By the end of it, there wasn't a payoff big enough for me. Like when he gets into the house and they'd make the big discovery under the wall. Like by that time, there wasn't a payoff big enough for me to care. You know, especially about Haddock's character. I was just never pulled in. I was never cheering for him. I think Tintin's a relatively neutral character for being, like you said, he is the constant, but he also is very neutral. I don't feel like he ever fully develops into, like, there's not enough personality. There's not enough about him to make me think this was the Adventures of Haddock to me. It was really the name that could have been the name of this movie just as easily.
Well, again, he's the observer. He's almost the narrator of the story, and it's really weird if your narrator develops as a character throughout the whole thing.
The narrating boy dolt. Yeah. I just, again, my favorite characters in the movie were Thompson and Thompson, but they're not the core of this, but they were the best moments. I cared more about what happened to them. I wanted more of them. I just couldn't sink my teeth into this story, and there was no good payoff for me. So
maybe if there was a woman with 3 boobs, you would have liked it.
What
don't talk about Total Recall around me. You know how that's going to do me.
What would have been a big enough payoff for you in the end?
Well, I just had it. I think maybe giving me what you kind of alluded this to, that there's gaps. Again, I don't know the source material, but like it seems like there were more stories to be told that maybe could have pulled me in more.
Yeah.
I just, I didn't cheer for him. Like I just needed more depth. Maybe could have been a big part of it. Maybe more depth to the characters.
And that's interesting because I would argue that Haddock actually had the most depth to him because it was his family bloodline. But yeah, I see what you're saying though. At the same time,
the bloodline's kind of it though. You know what I mean? It's just like I don't see enough struggle there.
I mean, his struggle is living up to the legend of his ancestor.
Yeah,
he is an alcoholic. He is kind of a loser. He lets his crew just take over his ship for almost no reason other than he's a drunkard, and then he gets to the point where he is the hero of the end of the story.
Yeah, and some rich jerks just like, I'm taking over, will reward you, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, money's a hell of a incentivizer.
Pirate gentrification.
Yeah.
Yeah. Throw the net overboard. That's ugly. That's so.
Daniel Craig is white people.
That's so 1998 Pottery Barn. That's so. Direct. Oh, hold on. It's what's our score here? It's 2-1, and the ship is tilting. The ship is starting to tilt.
It's taking on water.
It's directing Steven Spielberg, and it's worth noting Peter Jackson, director of the second unit.
Yes. For me, it's a unicorn. Directing is more because neither of them wrote the script. They were handed a script and they worked with what they were given. However you feel about it. I feel like the script was great, but whatever. What they did do was they took filmmaking aspects that people had been experimenting with, and I think brought them to the peak of what they should be used for outside of putting animated characters into live action films. For a completely animated world, using motion capture made it feel so much more real while still having the slapstick cartoony elements of it. I think the fact that they chose to do it that way instead of fully animated or fully live action, I think was a great choice on their part. The visual storytelling is absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. So
cool.
Unicorn. Cool. I'm gonna shit on this in a second.
No, I love your passion. I do. I love your passion. I love your passion more than the movie.
Let's just do a movie.
Yeah, let's just do a war card on your passion.
Yeah.
The passion of the South.
The passion of the K's.
No, I will go unicorn on this because I do think they pushed boundaries. It's interesting that you dug in this and found out that James Cameron was like basically a consultant on this because it definitely, you can see that influence was there. And I think that they did some pretty incredible things, and I can't blame the writing on them necessarily because it's like Seth said, and I think they did a wonderful job with the scene. Just the mocap was just insanely good. It was insanely good. I love the pirate ship, like the fight in the battle, all of that. I like the keg, the powder, and how they like really paid attention to the falling. It was very one shot.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be insanely hard to do in mocap, like with the very little I know about that. And I was like, okay, yeah, so in that regards, I will give the directors a thumbs up because I actually think that with this one, Spielberg like did cross the line a little bit. Out of comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is just completely out of his wheelhouse, but in a good way. And he's not going to be the Hall of Famer, but he's definitely like, this was best to see.
Yeah. This is the category I went back and forth on the most. I did actually land on unicorn.
Nice.
Proud
of you.
Proud of me. I didn't enjoy this, but I also, I do love that Spielberg went out on a limb and tried this.
Yeah.
And, and he collaborated with others. not just Jackson, but bringing in Zemeckis and bringing in Cameron to look at it. And Cameron,
I mean, Robert Zemeckis did the Polar Express.
Yep.
Which definitely was and it's kind of like Jar Jar Binks with putting a animated character in a real movie. It didn't look great. It didn't come across the way they wanted it to, but it crawled so that Gollum could run. And I think the Polar Express was that to this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to start somewhere, and I think it's really interesting, even though it kind of wore off the novelty for me. I think it's cool, and I think it's a feather in Spielberg's cap and Jackson's cap, too.
100%.
Yeah, so I do. That's why, yeah.
I mean, like, you guys remember the old Aragon movie that they, like, did?
I never saw it, but I remember it.
It was just, like, they were trying to do we talked about like things that would be awkward if they try to do mocap. Like it was just a horrible movie, horrible adaptation, and it was the director's fault.
Yeah,
and also the script's fault. The script didn't help it, but like you know, like with this one, like the script might have been like pretty bad, but I think the directors did it to do.
Yeah,
obviously people wanted to see it. They're just not in this country right now.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
open the borders.
Yeah, 3-1, 10-10. Here we go. What's in front of us? Cinematography, production, design, sound, costume, and editing, and we added stunts last time, but I guess we don't need stunts here.
Yeah, I think that's a case by case
Stunts
basis.
cartoons.
Okay.
For this one, I'm going a pretty obvious unicorn on my part, but I think the biggest reason I'm going unicorn is those transitions were fucking flawless. Oh my God. Every time it would transition from not only just the storytelling of the past to coming back to Haddock telling the story, but anytime they were going between locations, those transitions were absolutely insane. That one long scene that was a straight up one shot all the way from the top of the mountain all the way down to the water. I think that was such an innovative scene that kind of influenced a lot of like the barrel scene in The Hobbit. There's a lot that I could see that influenced things Peter Jackson did later on. I think it's absolutely incredible visual storytelling. And the sound design, again, everything just drew me into the world. I've got surround sound here, and something I do love is when I can feel everything around me because of that. Unicorn for me.
No, it's great. That's great. It's really.
I kind of want to skip me and just go right to you.
That's cute. That's cute. Real cute, Seth. No.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's a great way to start.
This one's actually the toughest one for me to do because, like, I'm gonna do unicorn, but it's by a little bit.
Oh no.
You know why? And it's because of that. It really was that gunpowder scene, and when he's like he knows he's gonna put all that, he's gonna go down with that ship. And it could have been corny. I don't think it was corny at all because it's like, it's clear that, like these two guys, like I don't know, like I would have liked to have been in the room and I kind of see how it was portrayed and everything that was set up for that scene. But also it's like Seth said, like these transitions were good. I actually think that this is the cinematography is what actually made the voice acting is because like if it would have just been straight animation, I would have been done. But like it was, I think this actually, but what did bug me was just like, I didn't like Tintin. I know he has a cowlick in the comics, but it's just so effing pronounced.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, it just doesn't unfold. You're falling out of a plane. You're not going to, whatever, that's cool. But yeah. And I also thought the alcohol bubble was kind of like, it lost me for a second.
Yeah.
That you're like, it's like, we're not in zero gravity right now. Like,
I mean, when you're falling in a plane like that, you are technically in zero gravity.
Yeah, but
you're
like liquid doesn't become a bubble, and it's all like,
it does. That's how science works.
What science?
The science of being in zero gravity.
Which
when the alcohol comes out and is floating in the air, that's how that works.
Is it really?
Absolutely, that's how that works.
See, I would have to look at it because like if it's spirits, and this is just like a science guy. But like,
have you ever seen anyone in the vomit rocket?
Oh no.
Yeah, that's they do tests like that. That's how that works.
You're a science guy?
Maybe I just didn't like that. Yeah.
That's
well,
fair.
I'm an engineer during the day, and
Did not know that.
The thing that like I also just didn't like dogs drinking. That's the one knock.
Yeah.
I was just like, all right, so we're gonna. So if
I draw the line in alcoholic dogs.
In your support, Seth, I will say that like, yeah, there are certain scientific accuracies, but we're just gonna ignore that. Like, you know, like we were like, dogs can't eat chocolate, but they can have grain alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, all right.
Yeah.
All right. I got a dog. I got a 4-year-old dog at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to let my St. Bernard just be like, oh, I'm going to have some Miller.
Yeah.
No,
Where were
give
the
him some whiskey.
Where were the PETA people on this movie? Like, No Country for Old Men had a fake dead dog in it, and they shat themselves.
Yeah.
We got a dog drinking booze here, and like they're nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, they had an ugly.
Because PETA's not actually good people.
That's true.
And Rango was an ugly gecko. I bet there's some pretty geckos out there.
Yeah.
And that won the Oscar that year.
I love that that's what you bring in. That's so good.
I don't know. I'm just mad that this movie was. I still think this movie should have been nominated. Whatever, 11, 12.
12, yeah.
So, but it's just like, I don't know. This whole thing's like kind of like a.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, but you're a squeak unicorn.
Squeak unicorn because like I at the time it was 2000. So
I always miss the novelty of these things because, and Seth pretty much just catches me up on everything I missed. You know, like
and then he shits on it anyways.
Yeah, I missed out on all the Snyder drama, and like reading about that historically speaking was so disinteresting. But I'm sure when you were there, I was like, oh, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did go rack and barely know him here. I think there are several really awesome sequences. The bird scene, the wallet scene, and when you talked about cinematography, I'm starting off on the positive here. I really love how the ship on the water looked. I know that's really small, but the ship scenes and the water scenes, I thought that was actually the most brilliant looking stuff. It looked better than any of the characters. I loved... Seriously, I loved the ship. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was getting a break from the cowlick. It's like, hey, there's no people to look at here. But on the negative, you know, the cowlick is a thing that, you know, knock down that wall. That's what I thought when I saw this wall of hair on the front of his head. I don't understand it. Also, he's an ambiguous boydalt, but the humans have big heads, but they're short in scale most of the time, so they're kind of similar to him. I think that plays into the ambiguity of how old he is, because the adults are also kind of shrunken to me. Did they look shrunken, like giant heads?
Yeah. Thompson and Thompson did.
Yeah, but had it too.
It's very accurate to their characters.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all, and. Yeah,
but they were your favorite characters, so you didn't like it at all.
No, I'm talking about the other. Sorry.
Okay,
I like the way they looked at. They were more to scale to me, but again, I And
I think people are going to think you and I hate each other in real life.
We love each other.
We do.
And this has been good for me. This has been an education for me. And we agree on so much shit a lot of the time. We've only had a few episodes where we're like, rah, but you know. And again, I always feel guilty because I edit these and I go back down and it's like, oh, it's not nice to Seth. I'm so sorry. John probably thinks I'm an asshole.
I better text them both.
I'm sorry, guys.
He does. He literally does. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I don't care. It's for entertainment.
I do voiceovers where I'm more positive. I'm like, oh, you're right, Seth. That was wonderful.
Fuck this movie.
I love you. Thanks for the coffee.
Yeah, this movie was wonderful.
Wonderful. But I feel like its sequences, there are really strong sequences sewed together by mediocre middle parts. Is kind of how I feel. Like in between those, I'm like gasping for air. That's just kind of how I feel. And then the action, like it's weird because on one hand, I'm really admiring what I'm seeing. The mocap is really interesting. But with the action, specifically like when Tintin is running on that beam on the ship, like it looks like his feet aren't connecting with the beam. and at that moment, I'm wishing just for real action. I just want live action. At that point, I'm like, well, the mocap was cool at the beginning, but now I just kind of wish this was real.
Okay, so on the flip side of that, what did you think about like when Red Hackman's like just walking in the midst of the fire down
that was kind of cool.
The mast.
That was kind of cool. Yeah.
Okay. So
the action
feel connecting there.
Yeah, but it's the action that's not landing with me.
Okay.
It just feels kind of disconnected, and I'm just kind of like, man, I could use more oomph here. So, but it doesn't matter, you guys. I just had to get my negatives in. So yeah, it is one. That's a 2. What am I doing here? Is it 4-1? Yeah, 4-1, and very positive considering all my negativity over here. So, all right, let's see. I didn't even come up with a fancy title for this. I don't know why. I just wrote the word animation. This must,
I wonder why.
Yeah. This might have been where like I had a kid run in my room throwing up or something. That happens all the time when I was making this.
And you're like, oh, now this movie just even got worse.
Yeah. Just animation. I can't even come up with a category name. But what do y'all think? I don't even know why I'm asking you. But
I mean, again, I think it's the peak of what motion capture movies can be.
Okay.
It's kind of like How I Met Your Mother for me is the peak of what laugh track sitcoms can be, because they broke so many barriers as far as how it's made. This, again, you have movies like The Polar Express, like Mars Needs Moms, where it's like, it's even more jarring because they're trying too hard to be realistic. Yeah. I think the cool thing about motion capture, which is something video games have figured out, is the reason you do motion capture is to, sure, have the elements of realism, but you want to go beyond the realism. You want to have some fantastical element to the realism without it looking like people are wearing prosthetics, without looking like they're wearing costumes. So for me, I think it's a unicorn because it broke so many barriers as far as how motion capture could be used in the industry.
What do you think, John?
I'm probably gonna do a no on this, just because like the one thing that did bother me about
it.
No.
Say it.
Oh my
What
God.
is it again?
Rackham barely know him.
Rackham barely know him.
Rackham barely know him.
Oh yeah.
All right.
All right.
I just do like that Jason Beckhe voice, that guy from Chicago PD. You open up an old sore in the city. But no, the only reason is like the one thing I would have liked to see maybe as an alternative is like I thought the color schemes. It was just like it was interesting what they paid very close attention to. Like I did like in the beginning when he's doing the caricatures and how they had like the real, like what it looked like in the comics versus like this animation. I thought that stuff was cool, but like things that bothered me was just like really heightened tones, like almost more exposure. Like the hair didn't need to be that. Some of the hair didn't have to be that poignant. I don't think that I couldn't get over there. Yeah. I also was like when they found the hat too, like with all the jewels and some of it. I felt like they could have added more to the payoff if they would have just had a little bit more attention to detail. Because it literally just, when I saw some of the jewels, I'm like, oh, that's just purple. Like, I want to be like, oh, that's magenta, you know? Yeah. That's so snobby, but like, I just, like, I don't know. That there are certain scenes in that movie where I'm like, ah, man, I got taken out a little bit. But I do think the cinematography, that's where it makes up that extra scotch. They really were in the middle when it comes to the two characters. Sorry, the two categories. But yeah, I don't know. Rackham barely know him.
I also went Rackham barely know him. I think on one hand, it's highly innovative. It's cool. On the other hand, it wore off very quickly for me when I lost interest in the story and the characters. and I was confused by the scale of the characters. It's one thing that you're doing mocap already, but then you got like the boy adult who's kind of weirdly similar to the adult size, and everyone's wondering, like, we couldn't even agree if he was a boy or an adult at the beginning of the podcast. There were so many easy choices they could have made to eliminate that, and they didn't.
In the first scene, too. Yeah. Because he's clearly 4 inches shorter than everyone else.
Yes.
And then Valkyrie, I'm not good at names, but the antagonist in this one, he's like, he asks the merchant, be like, and the merchant says like, ask that boy. But he's also like a full-time journalist. So it's just like, So in other words, you just hate the source material and wish that they had made a different movie.
And that actually leads to my final point, which is I think I got to point to this movie where I was like, this would have been a decent live action movie. Like, I like the mocap. Yeah. It's cool. It's innovative.
I don't think it would have stood up as a live action movie.
Well, they would have made different choices probably, but yeah.
I don't think they could have been faithful to the source material. Again, I think they would have just made a different movie if it had been live action. Because And granted, I haven't seen the entire movie, but you look at the Super Mario Brothers movie, it looks awful. Like, it looks like absolute dog shit as far as them trying to relate I mean, it's the same with the Popeye movie. Like, there's no reason you should have made a live action Popeye movie.
Yeah.
It looks like utter dog shit.
It was pretty silly.
And so it's like, I think if they had done the exact same script, exact same story, tried to do the same types of visuals, I think it would have looked cheap and terrible to try to do it with live action.
Yeah. I think that's like what I mean. Like the last episode we did with the Northman, I like that. Like we talked about how Edgar's like there was a question mark between like this what the helmets look like for the the Vikings, but and I think that would have been nice to see in this movie because it was so new that like if you don't know, go in the middle, But and I think they're with the animation, it could have been that way a little bit more, but. Maybe you and I just have very specific things that bothered us.
Yeah,
and. Seth will no longer invite me over for WWE now, and
you never come anyways. So
yeah, it's true. I'm out of town a lot, but yeah, that's a different conversation. That's really but, yeah, no, but yeah, I don't know. It's just
Yeah, I think what it just speaks to is like innovation's cool and awesome, and like new things is always cool. But it's if you're not into the story or the characters, you're not connecting with anyone. That no amount of like cool visuals is gonna help change that.
If you're a peasant, then
Yeah.
So what was your final category?
Final character: swashbuckling at the knees.
What?
This is a swashbuckling movie.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we all remember what swashbuckling means? It's typically associated with pirate movies, but like boisterous adventure themes.
Yeah, kind of
slapsticky, boisterous. Yeah, swashbuckling at the knees. How does this stack up against I think of like Hook and swashbuckling pirate adventure movie. You can even stack Indiana Jones. All the movies that basically are associated with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah,
yeah,
seriously though.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think obviously it's a different tone, but this kind of stands up with Pirates of the Caribbean for me, which, to be honest, Pirates of the Caribbean is not my favorite. I watched the first two and was like, that's enough. I don't know why we needed 5 of these.
I agree.
We barely needed 2 of them. But the first one is a hell of a lot of fun. And in a similar vein, I don't think Tintin is a perfect animated movie. It is one of the best ones out there as far as bringing something new to the table, but it's far from perfect. But I think it hits that adventure film swashbuckler like very well. Whether you love the characters or love the story, it's I think you would be hard pressed to say it was not a fun movie. It's a very fun movie to get through. So for me, it's a unicorn. It doesn't matter. I've already won this one, so. It's already 4 at least.
He's been swashbuckling over here.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you mentioned like Spielberg's work is like a whole, and like it's kind of like when someone has like a really fancy collection of guitars or cars or something that's really, like I think of like this movie is like the weird Japanese version. That's but it's French instead. But it was cool. So
with a cowlick.
And just some under. Yeah, I would give it a unicorn. It's a quality enough offset from what he normally does that is it perfect? Absolutely not. But like, is it also pretty good? Yeah, it's pretty good for what he was trying. I'll give it a unicorn.
Like
it's okay, I've already won.
You kind of like glared at me instantly. That's amazing. I noticed it. The minute you said unicorn, he went, "What are you gonna do, mister?" No, it's interesting. I went no here. I went rack and barely know him. And here's the thing: for all the movies that you can associate with swashbuckling, and we'll stick specifically to Spielberg, Hook, Indiana Jones, those movies. I would rather just watch those movies than watch this movie. That's kind of what it came down to for me. For that,
all the Indiana Jones ones?
Not all, but the first 3. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, not the last.
The first 3, yeah.
I'm one of the weird ones, I guess. I love all 5 of them.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's cool. They're still better than a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
But I just, again, the novelty of how this looks wore off pretty quickly for me. So then it was left up to the arcs and the characters and the story. And for me, there's just movies that do this better. Pirates of the Caribbean being one. I would rather watch that than this. I can't think of a single, what this category came down to for me is I can't imagine a single movie in that category that I would rather watch or that I would rather watch this over. And I couldn't think of one.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. See, I feel the opposite. Every single one of those, granted, I haven't seen Hook, but every single one of those movies you mentioned, I would rather watch this.
Hook's awesome.
Hook was dope.
Yeah.
Hook's so awesome.
Sure, maybe. I don't know. Let's do that, and I can shit on your favorite movie.
Hey, Hook is not one of my favorite movies. I like it, but you're not. I won't die on the hill for Hook.
This just to let you know, this doesn't even make it into my top 25.
It doesn't?
No.
I thought it's not in your list. Is it in your top 50?
It's in my top 50.
Oh, I thought it was on your list. Yeah.
See, I would have put it in the top 25, not even knowing the rest. So
No,
yeah, the way you're talking about it.
Because it's great, and you're wrong.
Okay. You know what? You still won. I tried to get John to get us one last negative there, but it was 5-2.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter. That's what sucks about when I do decide to be negative. It's never decided anything. I always get overruled. So fuck you guys.
Except for BVS.
I will say, I'll add on this note here. I rewatched this movie in an airport at 2 a.m. in New Orleans. So this was a lot of this maybe negativity might be based in that, but I think that's also like that puts you back.
Rewatch it with Paula. I would be interested to hear her thoughts on it. Doesn't have to be tomorrow.
That's true.
But
she
at some
loves
point.
animated films, like in CGI and CGI mocap films. So yeah, Maybe the wife is the final factor.
That's always a good way to pitch it. Be like, maybe your wife will correct your thinking on this.
Yeah. Maybe she'll fix this 5-2 score.
Well, no, I'm actually interested to hear her thoughts on it because I know she does like these types of movies. So I would be interested to see her kind of thoughts coming from because I'm not even that much of an animation buff. There's a few, like we were talking about with Mozart, Miyazaki. I will watch anything that Miyazaki puts out, hands down. But when it comes to computer animation, especially, I'm very hit or miss. I genuinely only like maybe 20 or 30% of the Pixar movies that are out there. Like for the most part, none of them really draw me in very well. This one, I don't know. It hit a lot of good points for me. So yeah,
you're gonna laugh. Speaking of wives. We're at this point in the podcast where Renee, my wife, walked in on me watching this. She goes, "Is this one of Seth's movies?"
That's hilarious.
She goes, "Does Seth pick this one?" She hasn't even met Seth, but she just, because I talk about the podcast all the time, she's like, "Does Seth pick this? This is not your kind of movie." I was like, "That's correct." Yeah.
That's so funny because my wife texted me and she's like, "Are you not going to sleep at all?" I'm like, "No, I'm watching The Adventures of Tintin." And then she calls me, she's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Well, I'm doing this podcast, and I've seen this movie. I've seen both of them, but what I was, whatever."
Yeah. I told my wife, I was like, "Seth said this movie's depressing." She's like, not everyone likes to be depressed like you.
I didn't say it was depressing.
No. There was a movie where you texted me. I'm trying to remember which one it was that you said this is a depressing movie.
Oh, it was Devil. Before the Devil Knows Your Dad.
And my wife was like, "Not everyone likes watching the movies."
That elevator movie.
Oh no, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
Ethan Hawke. Yeah.
Really uplifting.
Yeah,
I've heard.
Yeah,
just like The Adventures of Tintin.
Well, this was a blast. It was so fun to have you here, man. That was.
Yeah, bro. I'd love to come back.
Yeah, we would love to have you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love movies. I watch them all the time. So
yeah. What are your socials, by the way?
Just not
this one. For people to follow.
It's John John Datoy Datoy. That's pretty much my social for everything.
Cool.
I'm trying to get it switched over on Facebook. Yeah. Does Elon own Facebook now?
No, it's still Zuck Dog.
It's still Suck Dog.
Yeah.
Right. They're just making everything tough.
Yeah. Well, follow this guy. I cannot recommend you seeing this guy. He's one of the funniest people in our town, but he's escaping our town. He's going to places like Louisiana, all over the place. But please go support this guy doing stand-up. He's hilarious.
Cake.
He's my Filipino brother.
Yeah, I'm the new host. I'm like the add-on. I'm like the Dusty of the podcast. I'm just going to get us off track.
Yeah.
So you guys were thinking of the moon.
Well, hopefully we find a better adventure for the next one. I'm just kidding. No. I love Seth's list. It's great. It challenges me. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kyle.
I'm Seth.
And I'm John Datoy.
Love y'all.
The Movie Wars.